What's up, people? Laura Whitmore with Strategic Test Prep. The August test is this Saturday, and I know a lot of you have been prepping really hard this summer, getting ready to take it. So anything I can do to help, I will, and I wanted to give you guys some last-minute tips. I actually have 10 of them so that you can go into the August test and have a plan and feel confident and do the best you possibly can. So I'll give you some tips for the reading section, the writing section, the math section, and then some general tips just so that you're ready to go. So let's get started. My first tip is a reading tip. So when you get to the old passage, that's a passage written before like 1920, don't read it. You're going to get bogged down by the words if you do. They wrote way differently back then. They used vocabulary that we're not even used to. You're better off going straight to the questions and then going into the passage and just trying to find the answers. If you don't know how to do this, then check out my other video. I will link it right now. Then you can get a game plan for the reading. Now, you can even use that strategy for the other reading passages. If you feel like you read the same thing 5 times over and you don't understand what it's saying, you might want to use that answer seeking strategy for all 5. So try it out for the old passage, and then if you really like it, try it on the other ones too. My next tip is there's a little blurb at the top before the first paragraph of each passage. Make sure you read it. There have been questions where the answer has been in that, and so many students just ignore it and think it's not important, but you can get so much from it. The date will tell you how tough the passage is. The older it is, the harder it will be. The title may give you the tone. So if the author says something about how they hate automobiles, well, then you know they're going to be pretty negative about the topic. You can also get a sense on the hug slug, which are the 2 passages back to back, of what one person is arguing and then what the other person is arguing, and make a note on that so you can keep track of them. So definitely read that little intro blurb before you get going on the passage. My third tip is both a reading and a writing tip. And this has come up often this week when I've worked with students to get them ready for the test. Make sure that if you're asked about the primary purpose of the passage, you go to the intro paragraph, so the first paragraph, and you look at the last sentence. That's where authors typically put their thesis statement. So you'll be able to get a sense of the main argument of the passage so you can answer questions that deal with that easily without reading the entire thing to try to figure it out. Okay, now we're going to move into writing. Since that is useful for the writing, let's talk about another writing strategy, which is combining 2 sentences effectively. Students get pretty confused with these, but just remember on the SAT, effective to them is short, sweet, and concise. So whenever you're given answer choices on the writing section and they're all saying the same thing in different ways, just pick the shortest one because you want to pick the most efficient way to say it. So that goes for combining 2 sentences. You're picking the most efficient way to combine them, which typically is the shortest answer choice. Tip number 5, moving sentences on the writing. Now, this is one that just traps students and you end up losing tons of time. So my tip is please do not read the entire paragraph of the sentence that they want you to move, or try to shove that sentence into each answer choice in each spot and then read it to see how it sounds. You want to be proactive on those instead of reactive. So just read the sentence they want you to move and determine what type it is. A type 1 introduces and defines a term. So that needs to go towards the beginning of the paragraph before any other time that term is mentioned. A type 2 starts with a transition phrase. So they might say something like, although the ticket price was high, that clues you in that it needs to come right after the part where they talk about the ticket price. So that will usually be placed in the middle or the end of the sentence. So then you can just scan your paragraph and look for the spot where you think it should go and then pick an answer choice that matches that. My next 3 tips are math tips because I've been really following this SAT test closely. Every time my students go in and take a test, I pull their score reports, I pull the test questions, and since 2021, these 3 concepts have been tested continuously on every single released SAT. Even on the May 2022 test, they tested these 3 concepts. So tip number 6 is know how to solve an absolute value expression. What this means is you need to write 2 equations. So take away the absolute values and set it equal to the positive constant and to the negative constant, and then solve for both. You should have 2 solutions. Tip number 7 is when you're finding a y-intercept of an exponential function, put in 0 for x. Remember, on the y-axis, X is 0. Now just be careful, because when you put in 0 for X, anything to the 0 power equals 1. And that's where a lot of students get tricked, because they put 0 and then they get the problem wrong. Tip number 8 deals with triangle proofs. So on the May 2022 test, they gave 2 angles and then said another triangle had 2 angles that were the same. So when you're proving similarity, it's angle, angle, because that means all the angles are equal, so they're similar. Now, if you're trying to prove congruency of 2 triangles, you need side, 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 angle, side, angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle, or hypotenuse, leg. So just check and see if you have all the elements. Then you're going to pick an answer that says, I don't need any additional information. If you don't have all of the elements, then figure out what you still need, and then that's going to be your answer. All right, couple general tips. Tip 9, just stay calm and dot questions that you're stuck on to come back to. Listen, it happens to everybody. Do not panic if you don't know what you're doing on a question. It even happens to me. Just handle it with grace. Put a dot next to it. Recognize, okay, this is part of the process. This is normal. Everybody in this room is experiencing this at some point. And just move on, because you want to try to get as many points as possible. And then tip number 10, take another test after this one. I always recommend taking at least 2 tests. So when you get your August scores back, you can strategize. Did you do better in the math? Well, then you should focus on the English and take another test in November or December so that you can super score. So you can take your best math and your best English, even if they're from different tests, and put them together. You should always take 2 tests for that reason, so that you can work to get the highest score possible. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Good luck on the August test. Make sure you get some sleep. Please don't try to cram on Friday night. Give your brain a break, let it relax, and you'll be ready to go on Saturday. All right, see you again soon.